Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. I thought I would mix this one in here while I'm wrapping up your ghosts and spirit suggestions. This one comes from the reddit.com website. They're from the subreddit called True Scary Stories. Even now, I don't really know what to classify this particular encounter. You know what I mean here more in a minute. It could fall under the category of cryptids and monsters because I read somewhere in the comments someone was mentioning about it being a Bigfoot. Could fall under ghosts and spirits. Maybe there is a ghost there in the forest that's chasing people in a very, very scary manner. Or it could even be aliens, UFOs. Who knows? There could be an alien, extraterrestrial doing the very same thing. So I'm going to post it here. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and comments are of what this is. And it comes from a user called Cyber Soggy. They titled theirs as Strangers in the Forest. Very ambiguous, but again, the information associated with this encounter is also pretty ambiguous too. So let's go ahead and let's share this encounter here, and then I'll try to give my own thoughts and opinions on it, even though there's hardly enough to grasp something on. So this is what they stated. When I was a kid, around 10 or 11 years old, my house was on the end of a low-traffic neighborhood road that ran up against a large forest. I would often run around, play games, and go for walks with my friends out there behind my house. Of all the forest and woodsy areas I've seen, this one seemed to have the most density of trees. I mean, the trees were so close together at some parts of the forest that it was hard to walk next to a friend without having to constantly move behind or in front of them to pass between two trees. Anyways, it was a regular Friday night, and I invited my best friend over to hang out late since there was no school tomorrow. By the time he came over, the sun was beginning to set. Still, we wanted to hang out in the woods for a little bit before it got too dark. We grabbed some heavy flashlights and then headed for the trees. We walked for maybe 10 or 15 minutes before finding a fallen tree, which we sat on and just talked. This was one of our favorite things to do. Just sit in the woods and talk about whatever we felt like. I'm not quite sure how long we were actually sitting there, but we definitely got lost in the conversation for a while because when I finally looked up, the forest was almost completely covered in darkness. Initially, neither of us were too nervous as we knew our way around the forest and figured we would just start heading back before it got pitch black. We turned our flashlights on and started walking. I will admit, though, I was definitely a little creeped out. It was almost completely silent other than the crunch of the leaves from our footsteps, and we could only see a few feet ahead of us because of the dense trees blocking that view. After 2 or 3 minutes of walking, we both stopped suddenly as we heard the very distinct sound of a person walking slowly across the leaves just ahead of us. They must have been about 15 to 20 feet in front of where we were standing, but we couldn't see anything as the trees were blocking our view. I couldn't stop myself from wondering why anyone would be going for a walk alone this late in the middle of the woods. I tried to stay calm, but just as we thought the person was beginning to get further away, the footsteps stopped. My friend and I, both still frozen in place, looked at each other in fear and confusion. It felt as though everything suddenly became completely silent. As I stood there looking at my friend, I had a rush go through my body of a feeling that I was in immediate danger. Almost a split second later, I heard a footstep from just a few feet behind us. I took off running straight in the direction of my house. As I ran, my shoulders were constantly bumping into the trees as it was hard to navigate through them with barely any light. I heard footsteps crunching the leaves behind me. I hoped it was my friend, but I was too scared to look back. After maybe 30 seconds of running, I heard the footsteps take a sharp turn to the right and then drift off in the distance. This made me even more terrified that those footsteps were not my friend's and made me wonder where my friend was and if he was in trouble. A few minutes later, I finally made it to my backyard and immediately went in my house through the back door. I was out of breath. I peeked through the windows looking to see if my friend would show up, but after a few minutes passed, I began to really worry. My parents came downstairs and asked if I was okay as they saw the panic look on my face. As I was telling them everything, the doorbell rang from the front of our house. My dad nervously cracked the door open. My friend immediately pushed the door open and ran inside. He said after I ran, he froze in place, not knowing what to do. He heard two sets of footsteps go off in my direction after me, and after a few minutes, he decided to run towards my house as well. My parents called the police to report the incident, but nothing ever came of it. My friend and I still talk about it to this day, coming up with new theories about what really happened that night. Part of me wishes that I had looked back to see who or what was chasing me, but in a forest like that, there was no way I would have gotten 5 steps before running straight into a tree. Anyways, that is still the most terrifying experience I've ever had, and ever since then, I always get uneasy when I'm outside at night. And then that's it. That's everything that this user CyberSoggy mentioned in their encounter. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. So what do you guys think? What is this encounter about? Isn't it pretty broad, right? It's pretty ambiguous. All in all, it could just be two people that are just messing around with this user back when they were a kid. It could just be two trolls or two people that are just, making things making havoc for the user. So let's at least get that out of the way. But if it's not that, what could it be then? Again, some of the users mentioned that it was Bigfoot. I could kind of see that. The problem, though, is Bigfoot is obviously pretty big. And even with the forests, that being, as he described it, being like, let's say, so dense that you couldn't move 5 feet without essentially hitting another tree, you're bound to see something. You're bound to see shoulders. You're bound to see something else, like a large head, something along those lines. So I doubt it's that. And then there's the idea that it could be ghosts and spirits, like it could be something else paranormal. I think this could fall more into this, mainly because the idea is that these things are unseen. There's something there that likes having fun with whomever. The reason why I think it falls more into this is because even if these were two regular people being trolls, there's bound to be something found as far as evidence. Like they would have seen even little hints of a person's head or a person's arm, something along those lines. Remember, the first encounter this user was stating was they were about maybe 15, 20 feet ahead. That's not too far, but it's not too close, but it's still enough. Like there should have been something when it comes to them being there. And then the second encounter, they heard footsteps from just a few feet behind them. Granted, they didn't turn around. They didn't take a look immediately, but even peripheral vision would have picked up something along those lines. So I think there's something given when it comes to that, like when it comes to it being a ghost or something like that. Like they would have seen something spectral, or maybe not. Like they would have seen nothing at all, which leads to more credence to it being that. And then the aliens UFO side could be, I mean, you have encounters of people having these freakish, I don't know, experiences with those little gray men, those little like Hospital goblins are ones that come to mind, how they were just wreaking havoc with that family while they were in their house, and they were just moving about everywhere. So maybe this could be something along those lines too. But let me know what you guys think. I like how this story fell into that category of true scary stories, which the memo for it states that it could be ghosts, ghouls, cryptids, aliens, humans, and so on. So this, again, is pretty broad. There could be multiple items that this categorizes itself, but let me know what side you think it falls under. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.